So maybe you have already outsourced your management of your property to someone else, or maybe you're thinking about outsourcing it for whatever the reason. Perhaps you're expanding your portfolio and there's too much going on your plate. Perhaps you've got to focus on your business and your property is your side hustle. Perhaps you're investing in another city or another country or an entirely new space. So how do we keep track and make sure that as investors, you are getting what you're needing and that you know that your property manager is providing the service that you need to your requirements with certainty? Well, I'm going to show you what I do, whether I'm investing in a property right next door to where I live, whether it's in another suburb, another town, or even another country. These are the things that I have learned over time that ensure that I can produce the results that I need from the properties that I'm investing in and hold my managers accountable in a fair and equitable way so that I get the yields that I want. I will see you on the other side. So when I first started investing, people often ask me, why did I choose to invest outside of the country that I live in, especially as I was starting up in my investing portfolio? And I shared with them that if I could learn how to manage a property manager remotely, in other words, if I could manage my property from a distance, it would mean that I would have the liberty of choosing where to invest and where I want to travel or live. And that has meant that I've had to learn the hard way of how to be in touch with properties that are thousands of kilometers away from me and manage managers without me micromanaging them. And these are the skills, the tips, and the insights that I have learned over the years and compiled such that I can share these with my students. And of course, I'm sharing them with you now so that you too can take advantage of that safety and security of knowing that your properties are going to be looked after, and more importantly, if the manager is not producing the service, the professional service that you're requiring, that you can exit that clause without the classic penalty clause, which a lot of agents put in place, which is therefore for me a one-way negotiation. Most often property investors sign these mandates, these management agreements, and in those agreements, there are a whole lot of clauses and criteria that you need to follow, as opposed to what the agent needs to follow. And I said to myself, well, hang on, you're providing me with a service. So if you're not fulfilling on the service that I'm asking of you, well, then I want to know that I can exit this without paying a penalty to myself, but also I want to know that I can hold you accountable to the service that I require. So right up front, I say to my managers, this is what I'm looking for. This is the service that I'm looking for. It's all reasonable. I'm going to go through it with you. And I want to know that if you can, well, I want to know first and foremost that you agree to fulfilling on all these criteria that I'm putting in place, so that we're clear about it up front, that you are of the understanding of what I'm requiring as an investor. And secondly, if you do not perform, just like any other job, that enables me to actually exit from the contract to ensure that I can find the right kind of fit for my property. And over the years, as I mentioned, I have developed a wide range of systems from how to manage property, buy property, sell property, whether it's student housing, Airbnb, multi-let, commercial, a whole range of systems like the one I'm going to share with you now, which really puts into place how as professional property investors, we can actually really do well and dominate in our field. And I think I really want to re-highlight that, which is so many people out there are saying that property or wealth in property is created when you buy. And I kind of feel that if that's the only attitude that we're really going to focus on, or the understanding that we're going to base our wealth creation strategy on, well, we're going to leave so much money on the table. For me, you make money when you buy, you keep money when you're managing well, and you're going to make some more money if you sell right in how you position, place, market, and of course, attract the right kind of buyer. So in this segment, I'm going to put more focus and energy onto the management of the property. And for this is specifically for those people who are outsourcing the management to other people, whether they're professional agents or whether they're just individuals who they have negotiated under contract to manage the property. I have included a whole lot of the insights, the tips, and the requirements that I want, so that hopefully you can amend this, change it as you need, adapt it to your specific criteria, and of course therefore benefit from all those years of pain and hardship that I've experienced in this. So right up front, a disclaimer, I do not use this contract as is for every property manager. I will adapt it according to the needs, but this is a list of the stuff that I have noticed over the time that is really important for me to put in place up front, and of course make it clear that this is what I'm wanting as a property investor and what I want for my service provider, in other words, that person or that agent, to provide back to me, taking into account the sensitivity that if you're dealing with a property management company that has a wide franchise, they're going to have their systems in place that they are needing to follow. So I need to be sensitive of how I'm going to get the stuff that I need done met while they can still do this within their parameters and criteria of their mandate from their franchisors. So in that case, like I said, adapt this, change it. But most importantly, which is why I'm doing this video, is take a look at the underlying drive of what I am trying to get out of putting these things up front and in place, and to ensure that I can still keep in control without having to be micromanaging and in control. And of course, that's what we're going to look at. So here we go. Let's take a look. As I mentioned, I use this really in managing a distance, but more importantly, even if I'm managing the property next door, it's going to be so important that the same kind of criteria are followed, because as a property investor, property gives me choice of time, choice of location, choice of travel. And as soon as I'm sucked into the business, such as doing all these micromanaging on my properties, it means that I miss the boat on what property can bring me, which is that freedom to choose, the freedom of choice, to travel. I want to know all these things are happening, whether I'm in Mozambique or in Europe or across in the USA or in Thailand, Bali. That's what's really important. Last year, I spent 111 days outside of the country. Bali 3 times for a period of about 2 months. Thailand for 3 weeks. Mozambique for 35 days. The USA, I was there twice. Canada, all these things for me are because I have my systems in place to manage my property. And if that's what you're wanting, to live the life that you love to live and create that, then everything I'm going to share with you now is going to make 100% sense, because this is what's so important. Especially if you've also got a main job or your time is spent somewhere else, you do not have time to micromanage your agents. So let's get going, take a look at what I'm sharing, and of course I will explain step by step the reasoning behind this so that you too can really take advantage of that. So first and foremost, the reason for me wanting to give a piece of paper to the agents or to the managing person is because I want them to get that I'm serious. I'm a professional property investor. I'm not just someone who says, hey, here, you seem to know what you're doing best, so I'm going to leave it up to you. I'm saying, this is what I'm wanting because I am managing my property. I'm in control of my properties, and this is what I'm looking for. The moment they get that, because that's not done, especially here in South Africa, and actually it's not really done overseas either, that they realize that, wow, I'm actually dealing with a professional. And that sets up an authority-based relationship, which is not, well, I'm the property manager and I'm going to actually just tell you what I'm needing from you. It's far more dynamic than that. And this sets the parameters right, which is, please do not mess around with me because I am serious about what I'm needing from you as a service provider. Remember, you as a property manager, in this case, whoever I'm talking to, are providing me with a service. Therefore, I am the client. It's not the other way around. I'm not begging you to manage my property. You need to also respect what I'm requiring. And if you can't produce that, well, then please tell me so I can find another provider, right? So here I go. I start off by usually saying, here are my agreements to working with your company. They're important to my business. And if your company cannot meet these, then I have the right to terminate a contract with immediate effect and without any penalties or termination. This first came across to me when I was investing in the USA, that if it is that sometimes they just did not produce at all what I was wanting, the moment I said, hey, listen, I'm wanting to actually shift management companies, they came and said, well, we're going to prorata the rest of the tenants' rental income. Even though they'd already had their finder's fee, they're going to basically charge me for the full rest of that term of the mandate contract as an early termination penalty. And I'm like, but you're not giving me the service. So why must I now give you all this money when you're not producing the service? But of course, because that's what I had signed, which is what most of you probably all already have signed, I didn't have a leg to stand on until I actually came back and said, well, hang on, when we started the relationship, now this is what I'm needing. If you do not produce, then I can get out of this because you're not producing. So first and foremost, the emails addressed to you and your company have responses within 48 hours. In other words, 2 business days as a response. And the response can still be that you're just telling me that you received my email and that you will deal with this. This for me is incredibly important because we are remote. I'm remote. I need to know that they're actually going to respond back to say, Mr. Booth, I have got your email. and we are going to sort this out. Or yes, the answer to the rental increase is 6%. There were situations where I'd sent an email and didn't get a response back for 3 weeks, thinking that my email had been actioned, that instruction had been carried out, only to realize that they had forgotten about it. And then when I'm saying, well, now that's a negative impact to me, I had no leg to stand on. So I get them to say, within 2 business days, you need to make sure that I have a response to confirm that you have received the email. And of course, what I'm wanting is that you have actioned the steps that I'm taking. Absolutely important. I want communication to be open and thorough. And that is 2 business days or 48 hours. Also, I'm aware that many property agents have in-house contractors. In other words, they often have branches, right? They have their plumber on hand, and they have a whole lot of people that they've got a finger in the pie. In other words, I'm going to give you, I'm going to bring the plumber in to fix your pipes, and I'm going to get a referral fee for that, right? It's not an arm's length relationship, which means that as a landlord, there is a dynamic there that they could abuse that relationship back to me. In other words, they could just say, oh, there's a problem. We're going to call the plumber in. The plumber's going to charge you 2 times the amount because they're in it together. So I said, if any way that, even though your companies have different names, in other words, RJ House Management and Tom Shepard's plumbing company, that doesn't actually mean that they aren't in-house, that they aren't somehow combined in an intertwined way. So if any of the contractors that management company uses, if it's not totally arm's length, in other words, it's totally whether it's one or the other, if there's any form of relationship or referral or commission or anything like that, I want to know about it because that's going to be really important to reduce the abuse of that relationship. Also, I choose my agents or their company for a reason, and if you wish to assign this contract to another company or person, then I feel I have the right to terminate the contract without being penalized again. For me as the remote investor, the property management company is the most important thing, and this clause just wipes out my choice if you assign to whomever you wish. So this is when I came across that I specifically chose a company due to their systems, their thoroughness, and then after 6 months, they assigned my property to another management company, which their mandate had given them permission to do. In other words, I had signed saying, yes, that you can assign this to someone else. And I'm like, no, you can't, because it's like saying, basically, I have to choose or accept whoever you choose to now manage my property. And that's not what I wanted. So then I tried to get out of that contract, and they came back and said, well, you can't, because it's in the mandate that whoever we assign this to or give your management to, that's our prerogative. And I was like, well, that just defeats everything that's important about what I'm valuing. So I go and say that if you're going to assign this to another company, hand my property management over to someone else, then I have a right to actually say, nope, I do not want to go with that company because I chose you for a reason. And therefore, this isn't just an open book that you can just hand my property over to someone else to manage without my consent, right? Absolutely important. Next one, 30 days notice period is needed to increase in any prices. That's fairly standard. I mean, I haven't had a problem with this, but I'm just putting in place that, if you're going to suddenly say in 2 weeks' time is our annual increase and the price is X, well, you need to tell me that in advance so that I have also the opportunity to find an outside or a new management company if I don't agree with your prices anymore, right? So that's going to be the important one. We missed number 4. If any properties are assigned from one of your managers to another one within your company, then I'll be notified of this changeover, and a list will be compiled of the changeover roles and responsibilities that the new agent needs to agree to, including this contract. So the new agent would need to understand what I'm writing here. And this needs to be sent to me so I can be assured that they are aware of my requirements. So you'll often find a property management company will have someone assigned to your property or to you. And sometimes that person leaves the office, or is a new person takes over that role and responsibility, and suddenly you're dealing with a new manager. Now, on principle, that's not a problem, but if you've just nurtured this relationship where you're saying you must reply back to me within 48 hours, I've got all these other requirements around the inspections, etc., that we're going to be looking at, I want to know that this new manager who comes in is fully aware and agrees to all these requirements that I'm asking. So basically, I want to know that if you're going to change over managers, you need to inform me in writing, and you need to confirm with me what roles they're taking on, and the new manager needs to fully understand this agreement that we're creating now and contracting to, and they are going to perform in that way, right? Because in that way, I can be assured that that nothing will slip through the crack, because that's also been my experience. A new manager comes in, is totally unaware of this. A problem happens. I reply saying, hey guys, this is what our agreement is with your company, and that new manager says, well, no one told me about it, I didn't know, because this agreement is very much with the company, not just with the individual person. So I also want that individual person to know, to review, to sign and agree, commit to whatever their company has committed to. So they need to be informed of that, and they must tell me that they have read it and are confirmed on that, right? Then again, I've said number 6, every 6 months we agree to review this contract in order to see how to better increase the working relationship between our groups. So one of the things that I don't want to do is to come across as if I am the authoritarian and saying, this is my contract, you do this or else. Because there may be a working relationship that is really, really important, and I want this to work for both of us, for them and for myself. So I've put in there that we can review this and continuously strive to find a way to make it work for all of us. Because some of them might say, listen, Mr. Booth, this is what the challenge is. We no longer are doing this kind of process. How about we try that? And I'm like, 100%, if that's going to work, I'm keen for that. And in that way, the relationship develops. I certainly do not want to come across as this that's my way or no way. In the big picture, right? There are things that are important to me, but it's the conversation and the discussion around it that I'm really wanting, and that's important. Here are some of the other details which vary from person to person. So let's say that they're vetting new tenants. In other words, they have the responsibility to find new tenants. I don't want to get involved in all the small little stuff, but there are certain instances, especially with my higher level buy-to-let properties where the rents are expensive and it's a bit more specific and more dynamic, then I do actually want to have final confirmation of who they have approved as such. But before that, here is what I'm asking them to tell me, right? So I want a summary of the credit record of the tenant applicant. I want their 3 months bank statements, current pay slips if they have that. If they do not have current pay slips because they're just starting with the new company, then I'm wanting the contract, the employment contract, to be sent so I can confirm the starting dates. Of course, because I also do student housing, and of course, anyone else who's giving a lease to a minor, which in South Africa is under 21 years of old, well, then I want to have confirmation that someone else is going to sign surety, and of course that the guardian will also sign, because I don't want to get all excited about this 20-year-old who comes and says, I'm working and I've got this and I'm going to do this, whereas at the end of the day, I still need their guardian to sign, their legal guardian, which is their parent or their aunt or uncle or whoever has legal guardianship of that minor, even if they're 20 years old. So I want to know that, because I don't want to prove it and then there's a hassle 2 weeks later because we can't get the lease signed because of that problem, right? And of course, if they have references from previous landlords or employers, then of course I want the that managing agent to comment that back to me so that I can see, right? So there we go. In the ingoing inspections, this is actually where I am rather specific. If you've followed any of my other posts or follow me at all, you will know that I'm very specific about high definition wide angle videos. So in the ingoing inspection, I literally will have a non-negotiable, a deal breaker, which is I want high definition video. All of the problems that I've had in the past are when people do write-ups, which are very descriptive and are so open to misunderstanding and misdefinitions. And of course, if you take photographs, as I often say, you're only taking a photograph of what you can see, and disputes are always about what you don't see or what is not included. So the only way to resolve that is to do a high definition, wide angle video of the whole place, so that if something comes back, you can also easily just go back to that and take a look at it. And I have taken this into the Rental Housing Tribunal. I have used this to prove my case, both as a tenant and as a landlord, and it has worked incredibly well. Because remember, you can also take a snapshot of your video if you can just do photographs. Absolutely important. And of course, save so much time from the laborious writing out, because I don't want to get charged a lot of money to do an ingoing and outgoing inspection. And in some cases, like student housing, we can actually get them to do that themselves without us having to be present to some degree, right? So ingoing inspection, that's what I want. And of course, those videos can then be uploaded to a shared Google Drive or some other online cloud storage device, or storage place that I can just send them and say, here is where I want you to upload it. It also allows me to see the state of the property. In the past, I've also experienced people who've managed my properties. Everything goes well, there's a good turnover, and then suddenly something happens, and then I suddenly get this maintenance rehab report, which shows how the property has totally deteriorated through often just general wear and tear, but I was totally unaware of it and therefore couldn't plan for it. if I get the videos, I can just frequently see what is the state of the building or of the house in such a way that I can actually feel like I'm up to date, even though I'm halfway across the world. Outgoing inspections, same thing. High definition video, going over the property. And of course, in that process, if you're doing it with your tenant, you're going to be highlighting what needs to be done or what the issues are right away together, verbally in that video. So you can see that. And of course, that's going to really make a massive difference. So that's the first thing. The second thing, of course, is in the outgoing inspection, I'm wanting the property manager to highlight for me what it is that they are seeing needs to be repaired or done in order for the new tenant to come in. If that is the case, then I want to know and get the recommendations from my managing agent or person of, like I said, what needs to be done. I want quotes for it. And of course, what I want is, what time frame would be needed to turn that property around to be rent ready? What would the new rentals comparatively in that area be going for? And of course, what are the repairs we'd need to do essentially, or would be advisable to do or needed for, in other words, a general rehab or maintenance. So those are the two parts of the outgoing inspection. The one is just to confirm the outgoing, but in that process, I also want them to tell me all that information. I don't want someone just to come and say, Robin, the tenant has left it, everything is great. And then I have no idea of, well, what needs to be fixed? What should we change the current rentals? I don't want back and forth emails that take 2 days each way to get going. The property manager needs to be on the ball. They need to come back to me and say, we've just done the outgoing inspection with the tenant. These are the items that need to be repaired due to general wear and tear. They're going to cost X amount. It will take us 1 week, and we advise that we relist the property at 4,500 Rand as opposed to 4,000 Rand because of the increased demand in the area. Now I can just look at this. I've got the information. I can make a decision. I do not want to have to now respond back and saying, well, hang on, please, can you actually give me some more information, what I need to make a decision? Because that's just a total waste of time. And in my world and in your world as well, time is valuable, and time is what we're wanting to get back with property managing, with property investing. We don't want to have to put it back in. So that for me is really the deal breaker of, is your agent one who thinks, is a thinker? And if they're not, well, then they need to follow this because this thinking is going to be done for them. Next, right. Sometimes you get a notification from a tenant who wants to leave early or wants to terminate the lease early. 100% can get that. It's not my favorite position, of course, but someone can always say, according to the CPA, the Consumer Protection Act, I can give you 20 business days or 21 business days notice and therefore exit. That's fine. I want to know that. And then, of course, as you can see, there are certain things that I want to know about finding a new tenant, and of course having all that information, right? Especially when this happens, both from an early termination and of course in a general end of lease. So when the lease is ending, I'd be informed timelessly as per the lease renewal period agreement before the tenant be communicated with. This notification to myself, and then will include the following information. So what I just want to bring out here, before we go into the information, is most leases will state that the renewal period will be between 80 and 40 days prior to the initial lease end date. In other words, within that month or 2 months, the communication will happen between the landlord and the tenant, or the agent and the tenant, saying the lease is coming to an end, would you like to renew? I want the agent to come to me first before that renewal letter is sent out to confirm the information with me and for us to take a look at what is it that we are choosing to do. And if that is the case, then I want them to tell me. In other words, you send me this information. Don't just say, hey, your tenant is coming up for lease renewal. What should we do? And I'm like, okay, which property is it? What is the current rental? I want this information because I don't have this information. I've got more properties than I can remember to do with in this case. So I actually need that information because I'm not on the ground dealing with this every day. So give it all to me in one go so I can easily just respond back to you and we can action it. This is what I need in this format. Property address, I want the tenant name, and then I want what was their lease start date and end date, and I want to know what their current rental is. That will immediately put me into understanding that position. Then I want to know, what is the status of that current tenant? In other words, is that tenant, was they in default? Are they needing to, have they got outstanding balances, et cetera, with unreliable? I want to get a sense of them because if they're not a good tenant, I don't want to offer a renewal period for them if they've been a hassle. So I want to understand that current status. Proposed new rental renewal amount with this tenant. In other words, what would my agent propose we put as a new rental? proposed rental amount if a new tenant is found. So you might find that your existing tenant is great and you want to give them a better deal than you would if you had to find a new tenant. So I'm saying, what would this tenant's rental be if we wanted to keep them? In other words, what discount could we give to them? And if we had to find a new tenant, what would that look like? So again, as the landlord, I could weigh that up. And then, of course, the current projection of time frame to find a new tenant. In some of my properties, I know that within 2 weeks, I'm going to have a new tenant. With my upmarket ones that are very much more particularly niche because of glass and cantilevered steel corners and a really, unique setting that is more for internationals, that can take me up to as much as 3 months to tenant, because it's a specific kind of house that people go for, and it's not for everyone. So in that kind of scenario, I want from them what they are experiencing in that area as to the current timeframes. And then obviously based on that information, I will then have a conversation with the agent and say 100%, this is what I would like for you to do, and then they can do that and follow the instruction, right? The tenant holding deposit. So the tenant holding deposit is very clearly written up in many different leases as to what is required and where that money will be put. In general terms, if it is that you're going with an estate agent, the estate agent will put it into their trust accounts, and often the interest on that amount can be used legally by the actual agent. If it is an individual that's not a registered estate agent, well then that interest is traditionally accrued to the tenant. In other words, they will get the benefit of that. And of course, what's really important is they can give proof of that. But either way, the lease needs to be written so that is shown clearly and your tenant understand what's going to happen, because you don't want the tenant to come and say, I've given you the agent my deposit and I haven't gotten interest back because they didn't make it clear up front. But if you've outsourced this to an individual, that's why you actually need to know and to state and make sure they understand that if they're an individual that's not a registered estate agent, that therefore they will need to put that deposit into a money market account or a call account, and it was an interest-bearing account, and that interest is due to the tenant. And obviously that proof needs to be shown, right? Excellent, great. Let's go for threshold of maintenance amount. So in any situation, you probably already have this in your mandates with your agents, but there's usually a limit at which if something goes wrong in the property, there's a limit at which the agent can act independent of having to call you. But if it costs more than that, then they're actually going to come to you and say, it's going to cost 2,500 Rand. Do I have your approval to proceed with this repair or maintenance? And that threshold will depend on you and a whole lot of other factors. You'll need to enter into that. But the idea here is that you're giving the autonomy to the agent to act on your behalf in your best interest so that they don't bug you with small things. And in this case, you determine what that amount is. And more importantly, any amount over that, when they come to you, they mustn't just pick up the phone and say, hey, it's going to cost you 2,500 Rand to repair the geyser. Can I go ahead? You may actually say, thank you. I would like 2 quotes written and submitted to me on email showing and proving that this is the case, right? So you need to make clear what you are requiring. What I require and what you require might be different, but this is about you. So as I said, you need to take this draft, this contract, and turn it into what's going to work for you around the scenario. I have found as well that I need to give permission that if there is any emergency where you cannot get hold of me but have to act independent, then you can proceed. So things like burst geysers, perhaps electrical shortages where the whole power goes out and they need to call someone in straight away. If a pipe leaks, they can't wait 1 day for you to reply back and to get quotes. Sometimes it's like, I need to get a plumber in right now because it's 3 o'clock in the morning, there's water everywhere, and I do not have time. And unfortunately, it's going to cost me 3,000 Rand for the plumber to go dig up the paving and figure out where the leak is and then, come back. So there are going to be certain requirements that you can say to them under these conditions, under the emergency conditions, then you have my authority as well. Right? So there we go. That's what that is there. The next thing, monthly statements and accounts update. This is actually quite an important one for many people. And from my side, it's what I call is my dashboard. And basically every month I'm wanting them to send me a breakdown, a top view summary, partly because in certain circumstances, if I've got bonds or mortgages going off that account, I need to know that there's money in the bank, and that if there's a delay in the rental, I want to know so that I can make sure that there are buffers and reserves in that account, right? So in this case, I'm saying by the 10th of each month, please provide me with the following dashboard update. Give me the property address, the rent amount due, the current month rent paid. In other words, we want to know, did they actually pay that or not? Is there any other outstanding balance brought forward that still hasn't been unpaid? And of course, are there any other comments or suggestions that that agent has that would be worthwhile me knowing? Because I just want that an overview. If some of my managers are managing 2 or 3 or 4 or more of the properties, then just break down that into one table. So very quickly, I can just read, do I need to intervene or not? And if everything looks good, then I can just say, go ahead. And that really is going to give me the sense of I can keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on without having to put too much time into this process. And then I get them to sign it. So there we go. Like I said, a real expansive list of things which I have experienced over the years and have found to bring it in to really increase the performance and to bring down my waste of expenses, to optimize my tenant listings and of course my tenant expenses or my monthly expenses so that I can keep more of it. And trust me, that improves my yields. The yield is not just a function of the purchase price and the value. It's also going to be around, can I keep the income that the tenant is paying? And that has made a significant difference. More so as well because the agents therefore actually treat me with a whole different level of respect. And of course, this is going to really work. A word of caution though, if you do create something like this and send it off to someone without you really knowing why you're doing it or what you're wanting, and then you let these things slip, your agent is going to realize that actually you do not know what you're talking about, and therefore you're not as professional as you appear to be. Usually with my students, what I say to them before I give them my draft is I say, please write down all the things that for you are currently important and that for you want. Because I don't want my draft to skew their thinking or to make them think that this is the right way. I want each of my students to really get clear on what are they wanting, what is the life that they love to live, what do they require. Some actually really want all the details. Some are like, just make sure the rent is paid. Whatever it is that you want, you first need to be clear on that, and then you can take this and mold it so that it fits and produces the result that you want. Otherwise, like I mentioned, it could backfire because you're sending this to them and therefore they're realizing, you haven't followed up. You haven't actually held me accountable to this contract. It's, I haven't replied back, within 2 days. It's actually been 2 weeks and you never mentioned it. You didn't hold me account. So again, it's like, the degree to which they will take you seriously is the degree to which you take yourself seriously. And I think that's really the key to any form of property investing. You need to really become clear who you are as a professional property investor, and then the world around you will interact and respect you that way. This is a starting point. As I shared with you an example, this is just an example of one of the systems that I put in place. This is one of the things that I love about property investing is how we can really automate, streamline, optimize, and make it incredibly efficient and actually do things that no one else is doing because we're bringing that level to such a great degree that it really benefits us. And this is one of the main reasons why so many of my students search me or come and actually work with me or ask me to mentor and coach them, is because I'm getting them to think along the same lines, that they are working in their business in such a way that it actually allows them to work on it, right? What we're creating here is working on the business as opposed to just continuously in it. And of course, they're treating their property investing like a business. And that is what's going to open up huge insights for you and allow you to actually expand your portfolio, increase your business, increase your cash flow, decrease your expenses, which means increasing your profits, and of course allows you just to keep benefiting and generating more and more profits and greater income. So I hope to meet you at some point and look forward to any other feedback that you've got. Perhaps you thought there was something that I've missed. I would be grateful to know so we can put it in, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side.